Hello everyone, and welcome back to our English Conversation podcast, where we help you speak English more naturally, confidently, and comfortably in real-life situations. I'm Emma, and today we are discussing an important communication skill that every English learner needs, because sooner or later, you will hear an opinion that you do not agree with.
And I'm Daniel. Today's topic is how to disagree politely in English, because disagreeing is a normal part of communication. But the words and tone you use can completely change how the other person feels. You can disagree in a way that sounds respectful and thoughtful, or you can disagree in a way that sounds aggressive, rude, or dismissive.
Exactly. Many English learners avoid disagreeing because they are afraid of sounding impolite, so they stay silent even when they have a different opinion. Other learners are very direct and say things like, "You are wrong," "That makes no sense," or "I completely disagree with you," without realizing that these expressions can sound quite strong in everyday conversations.
That is an important point. Saying, "You are wrong," may be grammatically correct, but in many situations, it feels like you are attacking the person instead of discussing the idea. A better approach is to soften your language, acknowledge the other person's opinion, and then explain your own perspective calmly.
Let's begin with one of the easiest and most useful phrases, "I see your point, but..." This phrase shows that you understand what the other person is saying, even though you have a different view. For example, imagine that Daniel says working from home is always better than working in an office.
Well, I honestly think working from home is the best option for almost everyone, because people save time, avoid traffic, spend less money on transportation, and have more freedom to organize their day in a way that suits their personal routine.
I see your point, but I think working from home can also make some people feel isolated, especially if they live alone or if their job requires frequent teamwork and creative discussion. For those people, going to the office a few days a week may provide a better balance between flexibility and social interaction.
That is a very polite disagreement. You did not say, "No, you are wrong." Instead, you first showed that you understood my argument, and then you introduced another perspective. You could also say, "I understand where you're coming from, but..."
Yes. For example, "I understand where you're coming from, but I think the situation may be different for people who need regular face-to-face communication." This phrase is especially useful when discussing personal opinions, lifestyle choices, workplace decisions, or social issues.
Another helpful expression is, "I'm not sure I completely agree." This sounds softer than saying, "I disagree." The words, "I'm not sure," and "completely," reduce the strength of the disagreement and make your response sound more open-minded.
Let's use that phrase in another conversation. "Daniel, tell me an opinion about learning English."
I believe that students should focus mainly on grammar before they start speaking, because if they speak too early, they may develop bad habits and repeat the same mistakes for years.
I'm not sure I completely agree, because students can study grammar for a long time and still feel unable to speak naturally. In my opinion, speaking practice should begin early, even if learners make mistakes, because communication improves through regular use, correction, and repetition.
That response sounds respectful because you disagreed with the idea, but you also explained your reason. Giving a reason is very important. If you only say, "I disagree," the conversation may stop. But when you explain your thinking, the discussion becomes more meaningful.
Exactly. Another polite phrase is, "That's one way of looking at it, although..." This expression is useful when you want to suggest that there are other possible perspectives.
For example, someone might say, "Social media is completely harmful and people should stop using it."
And I could respond, "That's one way of looking at it, although social media can also help people stay connected with family members, learn new skills, discover job opportunities, and build communities around shared interests."
Notice that Emma did not reject the original opinion completely. She simply added another side to the discussion. This is a very useful communication habit. Instead of trying to prove that the other person is wrong, try to show that the topic may be more complicated than it first appears.
You can also say, I agree to some extent, but this phrase is perfect when you agree with part of the person's opinion but not all of it.
For example, I might say, university education is the only reliable path to a successful career.
I agree to some extent, because university can provide valuable knowledge, qualifications, and professional connections, but I do not think it is the only path to success. Some people build successful careers through vocational training, online learning, practical experience, entrepreneurship, or creative work.
Very good. You accepted part of my statement, but you also added an important limitation. This often sounds more intelligent and balanced than strongly rejecting everything the other person says.
Now let's discuss tone of voice, because polite disagreement is not only about vocabulary. You can use a polite sentence, but if your voice sounds sarcastic, impatient, or angry, the listener may still feel offended.
That is true. Imagine someone says, I think we should postpone the meeting until next week. And you reply with an annoyed voice. I understand your point, but that is obviously a terrible idea. Even though you used, I understand your point. The rest of the sentence sounds insulting.
A better response would be, I understand your point, but I'm concerned that postponing the meeting may delay the entire project. Would it be possible to hold a shorter meeting this week and continue the discussion next week?
That response does three useful things. First, it acknowledges the suggestion. Second, it explains the concern. Third, it offers an alternative solution. This is especially effective in professional conversations, because you are not simply rejecting someone's idea, you are helping the group move forward.
Another useful professional phrase is, I have a slightly different perspective. This sounds calm, confident, and respectful. For example, during a team discussion, you could say, I have a slightly different perspective. I think launching the product this month may be risky because we have not completed enough testing.
You could also say, may I offer a different point of view? This phrase is formal and polite, especially in meetings, presentations, academic discussions, or conversations with someone senior to you.
Let's imagine we are in a business meeting. Daniel, you are the manager, and you want the team to increase the advertising budget.
Based on our recent sales figures, I think we should significantly increase the advertising budget next month, because more visibility will probably attract more customers and help us compete with larger companies.
May I offer a different point of view? Increasing the advertising budget may help, but I think we should first review which campaigns are actually producing results. If we spend more money without analyzing the current performance, we may simply increase our costs without improving sales.
That sounds professional because you asked permission to share another view, and then you focused on the business issue rather than criticizing me personally.
Now let's talk about phrases you should use carefully. One phrase is, I completely disagree. It is not always rude, but it is strong. It may be appropriate in a formal debate or when discussing something serious, but in casual conversations, it may sound confrontational.
And expressions like, that's ridiculous, that's nonsense, you clearly don't understand, or, only an idiot would believe that, should usually be avoided, because they attack the person and can quickly turn a discussion into an argument.
Instead of saying, that's ridiculous, you can say, I find that difficult to agree with. Instead of saying, you don't understand, you can say, perhaps we are looking at the issue from different perspectives.
And instead of saying, your idea will never work, you can say, I'm not convinced that this approach will work in the current situation. The second sentence still communicates doubt, but it sounds much more professional and respectful.
Let's have a longer natural conversation now. Our topic is whether people should use their phones during meals with friends.
Personally, I do not think using a phone during a meal is a serious problem, because people may need to answer an important message, check something related to work, or quickly respond to a family member. As long as they are not using the phone throughout the entire meal, I think it is acceptable.
I understand where you're coming from, but I have a slightly different view. When people meet for a meal, especially after not seeing each other for a long time, constantly checking a phone can make the other person feel ignored. Even a few minutes of distracted attention can affect the quality of the conversation.
That is fair, although I think the situation depends on the reason someone is checking their phone. If a person is waiting for an urgent message, it may be unreasonable to expect them to switch off their phone completely.
I agree to some extent, and I certainly understand that emergencies happen, but I think the polite thing to do is explain the situation. Someone could say, "I'm sorry, I'm waiting for an important message, so I may need to check my phone." That way, the other person understands that the phone use is necessary rather than disrespectful.
Yes, I can see your point. Perhaps the problem is not the phone itself but the lack of communication. If people explain why they need to use it, and keep the interruption brief, it may not damage the conversation.
Exactly. And notice how our disagreement developed. We did not try to defeat each other. We listened, clarified our ideas, agreed with certain points, and gradually found some common ground.
That is the real purpose of polite disagreement. It is not about winning every conversation. It is about expressing your opinion while maintaining respect and allowing the other person to feel heard.
Before we finish, let's review the most useful expressions from today's episode. You can say, "I see your point, but I understand where you're coming from, but I'm not sure I completely agree." That's one way of looking at it, although I agree to some extent, but I have a slightly different perspective. And may I offer a different point of view?
Here is a speaking exercise for you. Imagine your friend says, "Learning English from movies is a waste of time." Pause the podcast and respond politely using one of today's expressions.
You could say, "I'm not sure I completely agree, because movies can help learners understand natural pronunciation, common expressions, and real conversational English, although they should probably combine movies with more structured study."
Here is another one. Someone says, "People should never change their careers after the age of 30.
You might answer, "I understand where you're coming from, because changing careers can involve financial and personal risks, but I think people can successfully start a new professional path at almost any age if they prepare carefully and develop the necessary skills."
Excellent. Remember, a polite disagreement normally has 3 parts. Acknowledge the other person's opinion, introduce your different perspective gently, and explain your reason clearly.
And do not be afraid to disagree. Having a different opinion does not make you rude. What matters is how you express it. With respectful language, a calm tone, and a willingness to listen, disagreement can lead to better ideas, stronger relationships, and more interesting conversations.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Practice these expressions aloud, create your own examples, and try using at least one polite disagreement phrase in your next English conversation.
We hope this episode helps you speak with more confidence and respect. Keep listening, keep practicing, and remember that every conversation is an opportunity to improve your English.
See you in the next episode.